Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. And today we're being joined by Joe Casabona, whose brand new book is coming out on September the 10th, I believe, called HTML and CSS, a visual quick start guide. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. Are you ready to begin?
I am.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
My outline was the most important part of the book for me. It was my everything. So I would strongly recommend writing an outline first to make sure everything is super clear. But on that same token, be ready to rearrange things when you need to. You want a rough idea of what your book's going to look like before you start writing words on the page.
Well, I think it's an important topic because when I started my own author journey 5 years ago, the first thing I did, and ironically enough, I was in Vegas. I was at the Mirage by the pool, and I actually created the entire outline for my book on my phone because that's what helped create the plan. So I wanted to ask you, for our audience, could you give them some advice on some best practices where they can outline their book?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that works really well for me is just doing a brain dump. And I'll use a mind mapping software like MindNode for this, where I have all the topics I could possibly write about and then subtopics based on that. And then once I have a good visual picture of everything I could talk about, that's when I start arranging it into an outline based on how I think the user or the reader will best learn that information. And I should say that my book is nonfiction, it's educational, so I want to make sure that I get the order right so that it aids in the reader learning the best. So with my HTML and CSS book, there is a ton of stuff there that I could talk about, and I wanted to make sure I was hitting the most important topics without leaving anything out.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the most important things because I truly feel that the outline is the game plan for your book. And then from that point, it's just following that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think for me, because I'm self-employed, I do a lot of things myself, and I'll have people proofread some of my work. But I think the hardest part is working with a team of editors who want to, I mean, this is good, but hearing a lot of blunt feedback at a time where you're like really in the thick of writing the book can get a little discouraging sometimes. So I think that being able to take all of the great feedback, it can be difficult, especially when you have one idea for the book. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm ungrateful for my editors. I'm very grateful because the book is much better because of it. But when I just spent like 2 days writing a chapter that I think is really great and they just like redline it to heck. I don't know if we can, we probably don't want to swear on the show.
No.
Redline it to heck. Then, you know, it can be a little bit disheartening sometimes, but remembering that your book will be better because of it helped me get through that at least.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of tough love in the publishing industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And my editor, he's great. He's just very blunt. You know, he doesn't want to mince words because he wants to make sure I'm understanding what he's saying. And so I know that my book is much better thanks to him.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you're planning to use in your upcoming book launch that you feel is going to work well.
Yeah, so I have several different content channels. I have my own podcast, I have a YouTube channel, and I have my blog. And I have been building my mailing list for a while, kind of based on the technical aspects of things. I'm really well known in the WordPress community, particularly with site builders who might want to learn HTML and CSS. And so my strategy has been one I've implemented over the last few months, where I've been writing content to hopefully build that list, that I have a good list to launch to. So my main thing is I launch the site. There's a pre-launch discount to continue building the list, but on the day the book comes out, I'm going to email everybody. I'm going to let them know the book is out, and I'll probably have a little extra bonus if they order within the first 24 hours and send me a receipt, maybe like some free time with me or free access to my membership for a little while.
Speaking of books, I'd like to know what is your favorite book and what was the number one thing that you learned from it.
My favorite book, I have two different answers for this, I think. Masters of Doom is my favorite book. It's about John Carmack and John Rodriguez and how they built ID Software and the iconic first-person shooter Doom. And I loved that because I'm a computer scientist, and that really got me into wanting to program even more. And so I kind of learned what it was like, kind of on the ground in the early 90s, writing a game that's really never been written before. And their perseverance really stuck with me for that. So the book that I read that affects me like every day is actually Profit First by Michael Michalowicz, because that's something I implemented in my business, and it changed the way that I pay myself and I manage my money differently thanks to that book.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote actually comes from Masters of Doom. So it's several lines, so I'll read it quickly, but it's, if you want to set off and go develop some grand new thing, you don't need millions of dollars of capitalization. You need enough pizza and Diet Coke to stick in your refrigerator, a cheap PC to work on, and the dedication to go through with it. We slept on floors, we waded across rivers. And that's by John Carmack, one of the founders of ID Software. And again, that stuck with me because it helps in starting my business. You don't need millions of dollars in capitalization. You just need the will to build the thing that you want to build.
Joe, I want to thank you for being a guest on this show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
You can head over to casabona.org/start. That is a good place to see what I'm writing about and the various places I'm online. It'll also include a link to my book.
Joe, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.